Link, Prefetch. Halloween. From Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia, this article is about the observance. For other uses, see Halloween, disambiguation. All Hallows Eve, redirects here. For other uses, see All Hallows Eve, disambiguation. Halloween or Halloween, /Halloween, -OIN, HL- a contraction of All Hallows Evening. 6. Also known as All Halloween. 7. All Hallows Eve. 8. Or All Saints Eve. 9. Is a yearly celebration observed in a number of countries on 31 October, the eve of the Western Christian feast of All Hallows Day. It initiates the Triduum of All Hallowed. 10. The time in the liturgical year dedicated to remembering the dead, including saints, hallows, martyrs, and all the faithful departed believers. 11. Within All Hallowed, the traditional focus of All Hallows Eve revolves around the theme of using humor and ridicule to confront the power of death. 12. According to many scholars, All Hallows Eve is a Christianized feast initially influenced by Celtic harvest festivals. 13. 14. With possible pagan roots, particularly the Gaelic Samhain. 8. 15. 16. Other scholars maintain that it originated independently of Samhain and has solely Christian roots. 17. 18. Typical festive Halloween activities include trick-or-treating, or the related, guising, attending costume parties, decorating, carving pumpkins into Jack-O-lanterns, lighting bonfires, apple bobbing, visiting haunted house attractions, playing pranks, telling scary stories, and watching horror films. In many parts of the world, the Christian religious observances of All Hallows Eve, including attending church services and lighting candles on the graves of the dead, remain popular. 19, 20, 21, although in other locations, these solemn customs are less pronounced in favor of a more commercialized and secularized celebration. 22, 23, 24, because many Western Christian denominations encourage, although no longer require, abstinence from meat on All Hallows Eve. 25, 26, the tradition of eating certain vegetarian foods for this vigil day developed, including the consumption of apples, colcannon, cider, potato pancakes, and soul cakes. 26, 27, 28. Contents. 1. Etymology. 2. History. 2.1 Gaelic and Welsh influence. 2.2 Christian influence. 2.3 Spread to North America. 3 Symbols. 4 Trick-or-treating and guising. 4.1 Costumes. 4.2 UNICEF. 5 Games and other activities. 6 Haunted attractions. 7 Food. 8 Religious observances. 8.1 Perspectives. 8.1.1 Christianity. 8.1.2 Other religions. 9 Around the world. 10 See also. 11 References. 12 Further reading. 13 External links. Etymology. The word Halloween or Halloween dates to about 1745-29, and is of Christian origin. 30. The word Halloween means hallowed evening, or holy evening. 31. It comes from a Scottish term for All Hallows Eve, the evening before All Hallows Day. 32. 33. In Scots, the word Eve is even, and this is contracted to een or een. Over time, All Hallows Eve evolved into Halloween. Although the phrase All Hallows is found in Old English, Ilra Gina Mastag, All Saints Mass Day, All Hallows Eve is itself not seen until 1556. 33, 34. History. Gaelic and Welsh influence. An early 20th century Irish Halloween mask displayed at the Museum of Country Life. Today's Halloween customs are thought to have been influenced by folk customs and beliefs from the Celtic-speaking countries, some of which have pagan roots, and others which may be rooted in Celtic Christianity. 35, 36. Indeed, Jack Santino, a folklorist, writes that the sacred and the religious are a fundamental context for understanding Halloween in Northern Ireland, but there was throughout Ireland an uneasy truce existing between customs and beliefs associated with Christianity and those associated with religions that were Irish before Christianity arrived. 37. Historian Nicholas Rogers, exploring the origins of Halloween, notes that while some folklorists have detected its origins in the Roman feast of Pomona, the goddess of fruits and seeds, or in the festival of the dead called Parentalia, it is more typically linked to the Celtic festival of Samhain, which comes from the Old Irish for summer's end. 35. Samhain, pronounced sah-win or sow-in, was the first and most important of the 4 quarter days in the medieval Gaelic calendar and was celebrated in Ireland, Scotland and the Isle of Man. 38. 39. It was held on or about 31 October 1 November and kindred festivals were held at the same time of year by the Brittonic Celts, for example Callan Beath, in Wales, Callan Wath, in Cornwall, and Callan Gonath, in Brittany. Samhain and Callan Beath are mentioned in some of the earliest Irish and Welsh literature. The names have been used by historians to refer to Celtic Halloween customs up until the 19th century, 40, and are still the Gaelic and Welsh names for Halloween. Samhain/Callan Beath marked the end of the harvest season and beginning of winter or the darker half of the year. 41, 42, like Beltane/Callan Mai, it was seen as a liminal time, when the spirits or fairies, the Eosai, could more easily come into our world and were particularly active. 43, 44, most scholars see the Eosai as degraded versions of ancient gods, whose power remained active in the people's minds even after they had been officially replaced by later religious beliefs. The Eosai were both respected and feared, with individuals often invoking the protection of God when approaching their dwellings. 45, 46, at Samhain, it was believed that the Eosai needed to be propitiated to ensure that the people and their livestock survived the winter. Offerings of food and drink, or portions of the crops, were left for the Eosai. 47, 48, 49, 50, the souls of the dead were also said to revisit their homes. 51, places were set at the dinner table or by the fire to welcome them. 52, the belief that the souls of the dead return home on one night or day of the year seems to have ancient origins and is found in many cultures throughout the world. 53, in 19th century Ireland, candles would be lit and prayers formally offered for the souls of the dead. After this the eating, drinking, and games would begin. 54, throughout the Gaelic and Welsh regions, the household festivities included rituals and games intended to divine one's future, especially regarding death and marriage. 55, nuts and apples were often used in these divination rituals. Special bonfires were lit and there were rituals involving them. Their flames, smoke and ashes were deemed to have protective and cleansing powers, and were also used for divination. 40, 41, it is suggested that the fires were a kind of imitative or sympathetic magic. They mimicked the sun, helping the powers of growth, and holding back the decay and darkness of winter. 52, 56, 57, Christian minister Eddie J. Smith suggests that the bonfires were also used to scare witches of their awaiting punishment in hell. 58. Snap Apple Night, painted by Daniel Maclise in 1833, shows people feasting and playing divination games on Halloween in Ireland. In modern Ireland, Scotland, Man and Wales, the festival included mumming and guising. 59, the latter of which goes back at least as far as the 16th century. 60, this involved people going house to house in costume, or in disguise, usually reciting verses or songs in exchange for food. 59, it may have come from the Christian custom of souling, see below, or it may have a Gaelic folk origin, with the costumes being a means of imitating, or disguising oneself from the Eosai. In Scotland, youths went house to house on 31 October with masked, painted or blackened faces, often threatening to do mischief if they were not welcomed. 59. F. Marion McNeill suggests the ancient festival included people in costume representing the spirits, and that faces were marked, or blackened, with ashes taken from the sacred bonfire. 60. In parts of Wales, men went about dressed as fearsome beings called Gracha. 59. In the late 19th and early 20th century, young people in Glamorgan and Orkney dressed as the opposite gender. 59. In parts of southern Ireland, the guisers included a hobby horse. A man dressed as a Lairban, white mare, led youths house to house reciting verses, some of which had pagan overtones, in exchange for food. If the household donated food, it could expect good fortune from the muck ola. Not doing so would bring misfortune. 61. 62. Elsewhere in Europe, mumming and hobby horses were part of other yearly festivals. However, in the Celtic-speaking regions they were particularly appropriate to a night upon which supernatural beings were said to be abroad and could be imitated or warded off by human wanderers. 59. As early as the 18th century, imitating malignant spirits led to playing pranks in Ireland and the Scottish Highlands. 59. Wearing costumes at Halloween spread to England in the 20th century, as did the custom of playing pranks. 59. The traditional illumination for geysers or pranksters abroad on the night in some places was provided by turnips or mangel wurzels, hollowed out to act as lanterns and often carved with grotesque faces to represent spirits or goblins. 59. These were common in parts of Ireland and the Scottish Highlands in the 19th century. 59. As well as in Somerset. See Punky Night. In the 20th century they spread to other parts of England and became generally known as Jack-o'-Single-lanterns. 59. Christian influence. Christianity portal. V.T.E. Today's Halloween customs are also thought to have been influenced by Christian dogma and practices derived from it. Halloween falls on the evening before the Christian holy days of All Hallows Day, also known as All Saints or Hallowmas, on 1 November and All Souls Day on 2 November, thus giving the holiday on 31 October the full name of All Hallows Eve, meaning the evening before All Hallows Day. 63. Since the time of the primitive church. 64. Major feasts in the Christian church, such as Christmas, Easter and Pentecost, had vigils which began the night before, as did the Feast of All Hallows. 65. These 3 days are collectively referred to as All Hallownight and are a time for honoring the saints and praying for the recently departed souls who have yet to reach heaven. All Saints was introduced in the year 609, but was originally celebrated on 13 May. 66. In 835, it was switched to 1 November, the same date as Samhain, at the behest of Pope Gregory IV. 66. Some suggest this was due to Celtic influence, while others suggest it was a Germanic idea. 66. It is also suggested that the change was made on the practical grounds that Rome in summer could not accommodate the great number of pilgrims who flocked to it, and perhaps because of public health considerations regarding Roman fever, a disease that claimed a number of lives during the sultry summers of the region. 67. On All Hallows Eve, Christians in some parts of the world visit graveyards to pray and place flowers and candles on the graves of their loved ones. 68. By the end of the 12th century they had become holy days of obligation across Europe and involved such traditions as ringing church bells for the souls in purgatory. In addition, it was customary for criers dressed in black to parade the streets, ringing a bell of mournful sound and calling on all good Christians to remember the poor souls. 69. Souling. The custom of baking and sharing soul cakes for all christened souls. 70. Has been suggested as the origin of trick-or-treating. 71. The custom dates back at least as far as the 15th century. 72. And was found in parts of England, Belgium, Germany, Austria and Italy. 53. Groups of poor people, often children, would go door to door during All Hallows Night, collecting soul cakes, in exchange for praying for the dead, especially the souls of the giver's friends and relatives. 73, 74, 72. Shakespeare mentions the practice in his comedy The Two Gentlemen of Verona, 1593. 75. The custom of wearing costumes has been explicated by Prince Sori Conte, who wrote, It was traditionally believed that the souls of the departed wandered the earth until All Saints' Day, and All Hallows' Eve provided one last chance for the dead to gain vengeance on their enemies before moving to the next world. In order to avoid being recognized by any soul that might be seeking such vengeance, people would don masks or costumes to disguise their identities. 76. In the Middle Ages, churches displayed the relics of martyred saints, and those parishes that were too poor to have relics let parishioners dress up as the saints instead. 77. A practice that some Christians continue in Halloween celebrations today. 78. Folklorist Kingsley Palmer, in addition to others, has suggested that the carved Jack-O-lantern, a popular symbol of Halloween, originally represented the souls of the dead. 79. 1. On Halloween, in medieval Europe, fires were lit to guide these souls on their way and deflect them from haunting honest Christian folk. 80. In addition, households in Austria, England, Ireland often had candles burning in every room to guide the souls back to visit their earthly homes. These were known as soul lights. 81. 82. 83. Many Christians in continental Europe, especially in France, acknowledged a belief that once a year, on Halloween, the dead of the churchyards rose for one wild, hideous carnival, known as the Danse Macabre, which has been commonly depicted in church decoration, especially on the walls of cathedrals, monasteries, and cemeteries. 84. Christopher Allman and Rosamund Nkitterick write in the New Cambridge Medieval History that Christians were moved by the sight of the infant Jesus playing on his mother's knee, their hearts were touched by the Pietà, and patron saints reassured them by their presence. But, all the while, the Danse Macabre urged them not to forget the end of all earthly things. 85. This Danse Macabre, which was enacted by Christian village children who celebrated the Vigil of All Saints in the 16th century, has been suggested as the predecessor of modern-day costume parties on this same day. 86. 87. In parts of Britain, these customs came under attack during the Reformation, as some Protestants berated purgatory as a popish doctrine incompatible with the notion of predestination. Thus, for some nonconformist Protestants, the theology of All Hallows' Eve was redefined. Without the doctrine of purgatory, the returning souls cannot be journeying from purgatory on their way to heaven, as Catholics frequently believe and assert. Instead, the so-called ghosts are thought to be in actuality evil spirits. As such, they are threatening. 82. Other Protestants maintained belief in an intermediate state, known as Hades, bosom of Abraham. 88. And continued to observe the original customs, especially souling, candlelit processions, and the ringing of church bells in memory of the dead. 89. 63. With regard to the evil spirits, on Halloween, barns and homes were blessed to protect people and livestock from the effect of witches, who were believed to accompany the malignant spirits as they traveled the earth. 80. In the 19th century, in some rural parts of England, families gathered on hills on the night of All Hallows' Eve. One held a bunch of burning straw on a pitchfork while the rest knelt around him in a circle, praying for the souls of relatives and friends until the flames went out. This was known as teenlay, derived either from the Old English tendon, meaning to kindle, or a word related to Old Irish tenlick, meaning hearth. 90. The rising popularity of Guy Fawkes Night, 5 November, from 1605 onward, saw many Halloween traditions appropriated by that holiday instead, and Halloween's popularity waned in Britain, with the noteworthy exception of Scotland. 91. There and in Ireland, they had been celebrating Samhain and Halloween since at least the early Middle Ages, and the Scottish Kirk took a more pragmatic approach to Halloween, seeing it as important to the life cycle and rites of passage of communities, and thus ensuring its survival in the country. 91. In France, some Christian families, on the night of All Hallows' Eve, prayed beside the graves of their loved ones, setting down dishes full of milk for them. 81. On Halloween, in Italy, some families left a large meal out for ghosts of their past relatives, before they departed for church services. 92. In Spain, on this night, special pastries are baked, known as Bones of the Holy, Spanish, Huesos de Santo, and put them on the graves of the churchyard, a practice that continues to this day. 93. Spread to North America. The annual Greenwich Village Halloween Parade in New York City, the world's largest Halloween parade. 94. Leslie Banadine and Cindy Ott both write that Anglican colonists in the South and Catholic colonists in Maryland recognized All Hallows Eve in their church calendars. 95. 96. Although the Puritans of New England maintained strong opposition to the holiday, along with other traditional celebrations of the established church, including Christmas. 97. Mass Irish and Scottish immigration during the 19th century increased the holiday celebration in the United States. 98. In Cajun areas, a nocturnal mass was said in cemeteries on Halloween night. Candles that had been blessed were placed on graves, and families sometimes spent the entire night at the graveside. 99. Confined to the immigrant communities during the mid-19th century, it was gradually assimilated into mainstream society, and by the first decade of the 20th century it was being celebrated coast to coast by people of all social, racial and religious backgrounds. 100. The annual New York Halloween Parade, initiated in 1974 by puppeteer and mask maker Ralph Lee of the Lower Manhattan neighborhood of Greenwich Village in New York City, is the world's largest Halloween parade and America's only major nighttime parade, attracting more than 60,000 costumed participants, 2 million in-person spectators, and a worldwide television audience of over 100 million. 94. Symbols. At Halloween, yards and public spaces may be decorated with traditionally macabre symbols including witches, skeletons, cobwebs, and headstones. Development of artifacts and symbols associated with Halloween formed over time. Jack-o'-symbol-lanterns are traditionally carried by geysers on All Hallows Eve in order to frighten evil spirits. 101. There is a popular Irish Christian folktale associated with the Jack-o'-symbol-lantern, 102, which in lore, is said to represent a soul who has been denied entry into both heaven and hell. 103. En route home after a night's drinking, Jack encounters the devil and tricks him into climbing a tree. A quick-thinking Jack etches the sign of the cross into the bark, thus trapping the devil. Jack strikes a bargain that Satan can never claim his soul. After a life of sin, drink, and mendacity, Jack is refused entry to heaven when he dies. Keeping his promise, the devil refuses to let Jack into hell and throws a live coal straight from the fires of hell at him. It was a cold night, so Jack places the coal in a hollowed-out turnip to stop it from going out, since which time Jack and his lantern have been roaming looking for a place to rest. 104. In Ireland and Scotland, the turnip has traditionally been carved during Halloween. 105. 106. But immigrants to North America used the native pumpkin, which is both much softer and much larger, making it easier to carve than a turnip. 105. The American tradition of carving pumpkins is recorded in 1837, 107, and was originally associated with harvest time in general, not becoming specifically associated with Halloween until the mid to late 19th century. 108. The modern imagery of Halloween comes from many sources, including Christian eschatology, national customs, works of Gothic and horror literature, such as the novels Frankenstein and Dracula, and classic horror films, such as Frankenstein and the Mummy. 109. 110. Imagery of the skull, a reference to Golgotha, in the Christian tradition, serves as a reminder of death and the transitory quality of human life, and is consequently found in Memento Mori and Vanitas compositions. 111. Skulls have therefore been commonplace in Halloween, which touches on this theme. 112. Traditionally, the back walls of churches are decorated with a depiction of the Last Judgment, complete with graves opening and the dead rising, with the heaven filled with angels and a hell filled with devils, a motif that has permeated the observance of this tridem. 113. One of the earliest works on the subject of Halloween is from Scottish poet John Mayne, who, in 1780, made note of pranks at Halloween, what fear few, pranks ensue, as well as the supernatural associated with the night, boogies, ghosts, influencing Robert Burns, Halloween, 1785. 114. Elements of the autumn season, such as pumpkins, corn husks and scarecrows, are also prevalent. Homes are often decorated with these types of symbols around Halloween. Halloween imagery includes themes of death, evil, and mythical monsters. 115. Black, orange, and sometimes purple are Halloween's traditional colors. Trick-or-treating and guising. Main article, trick-or-treating. Trick-or-treaters in Sweden. Trick-or-treating is a customary celebration for children on Halloween. Children go in costume from house to house, asking for treats such as candy or sometimes money, with the question, trick or treat? The word, trick, refers to, threat, to perform mischief on the homeowners or their property if no treat is given. 71. The practice is said to have roots in the medieval practice of mumming, which is closely related to souling, discussed above. 116. John Pym writes that, many of the feast days associated with the presentation of mumming plays were celebrated by the Christian Church. 117. These feast days included All Hallows Eve, Christmas, Twelfth Night and Shrove Tuesday. 118. 119. Mumming, practiced in Germany, Scandinavia and other parts of Europe. 120. Involved masked persons in fancy dress who paraded the streets and entered houses to dance or play dice in silence. Their basic narrative framework is the story of St. George and the 7 champions of Christendom. 121. In England, from the medieval period, 122, up until the 30s, 123, people practiced the Christian custom of souling on Halloween, which involved groups of soulers, both Protestant and Catholic. 89. Going from parish to parish, begging the rich for soul cakes, in exchange for praying for the souls of the givers and their friends. 73. In Scotland and Ireland, guising children disguised in costume going from door to door for food or coins is a traditional Halloween custom, and is recorded in Scotland at Halloween in 1895, where masqueraders in disguise carrying lanterns made out of scooped out turnips visit homes to be rewarded with cakes, fruit and money. 106. The practice of guising at Halloween in North America is first recorded in 1911, where a newspaper in Kingston, Ontario reported children going, guising, around the neighborhood. 124. Souling was a Christian practice carried out in many English towns on Halloween and Christmas. American historian and author Ruth Agna Kelly of Massachusetts wrote the first book-length history of Halloween in the United States, The Book of Halloween, 1919, and references souling in the chapter, Halloween in America. The taste in Halloween festivities now is to study old traditions, and hold a Scotch party, using Burns' poem Halloween as a guide, or to go souling as the English used. In short, no custom that was once honored at Halloween is out of fashion now. 125. In her book, Kelly touches on customs that arrived from across the Atlantic. Americans have fostered them, and are making this an occasion something like what it must have been in its best days overseas. All Halloween customs in the United States are borrowed directly or adapted from those of other countries. 126. While the first reference to guising in North America occurs in 1911, another reference to ritual begging on Halloween appears, place unknown, in 1915, with the third reference in Chicago in 1920. 127. An automobile trunk at a trunk or treat event at St. John Lutheran Church and Early Learning Center in Darien, Illinois. The earliest known use in print of the term, trick or treat, appears in 1927, from Blackie, Alberta, Canada. Halloween provided an opportunity for real strenuous fun. No real damage was done except to the temper of some who had to hunt for wagon wheels, gates, wagons, barrels, etc., much of which decorated the front street. The youthful tormentors were at back door and front demanding edible plunder by the word trick or treat, to which the inmates gladly responded and sent the robbers away rejoicing. 128. The thousands of Halloween postcards produced between the turn of the 20th century and the 20s commonly show children but not trick-or-treating. 129. The editor of a collection of over 3,000 vintage Halloween postcards writes, "There are cards which mention the custom of trick-or-treating, or show children in costumes at the doors, but as far as we can tell they were printed later than the 20s and more than likely even the 30s. Tricksters of various sorts are shown on the early postcards, but not the means of appeasing them." 130. Trick-or-treating does not seem to have become a widespread practice until the 30s, with the first U.S. appearances of the term in 1934, 131. And the first use in a national publication occurring in 1939. 132. A popular variant of trick-or-treating, known as trunk-or-treating, or Halloween tailgating, occurs when children are offered treats from the trunks of cars parked in a church parking lot, or sometimes a school parking lot. 93. 133. In a trunk-or-treat event, the trunk, boot, of each automobile is decorated with a certain theme. 134, such as those of children's literature, movies, scripture, and job roles. 135, because the traditional style of trick-or-treating was made impossible after Hurricane Katrina, trunk-or-treating provided comfort to those whose homes were devastated. 136, trunk-or-treating has grown in popularity due to its perception as being more safe than going door to door. A point that resonates well with parents, as well as the fact that it solves the rural conundrum in which homes are built a half-mile apart. 137, 138. Costumes. Main article, Halloween costume. A costume party in 1890. Halloween costumes are traditionally modeled after supernatural figures such as vampires, monsters, ghosts, skeletons, witches, and devils. Over time, in the United States the costume selection extended to include popular characters from fiction, celebrities, and generic archetypes such as ninjas and princesses. 71. Dressing up in costumes and guising, was prevalent in Ireland and Scotland at Halloween by the late 19th century. 106. Costuming became popular for Halloween parties in the United States in the early 20th century, as often for adults as for children. The first mass-produced Halloween costumes appeared in stores in the 30s when trick-or-treating was becoming popular in the United States. The Reverend Dr. Eddie J. Smith, in his book Halloween, Hallowed Be Thy Name, offers a religious perspective to the wearing of costumes on All Hallows' Eve, suggesting that by dressing up as preachers, who at one time caused us to fear and tremble, people are able to poke fun at Satan, whose kingdom has been plundered by our Savior. Images of skeletons and the dead are traditional decorations used as memento mori. 139, 140. UNICEF. Main article, Trick or Treat for UNICEF. Trick or Treat for UNICEF is a fundraising program to support UNICEF. 71. A United Nations program that provides humanitarian aid to children less than /speed greater than N in developing countries. Started as a local event in a Northeast Philadelphia neighborhood in 1950 and expanded nationally in 1952, the program involves the distribution of small boxes by schools, or in modern times, corporate sponsors like Hallmark, at their licensed stores, to trick-or-treaters, in which they can solicit small change donations from the houses they visit. It is estimated that children have collected more than $118 million for UNICEF since its inception. In Canada, in 2006, UNICEF decided to discontinue their Halloween collection boxes, citing safety and administrative concerns. After consultation with schools, they instead redesigned the program. 141, 142. GAM. Pediaphone is a free service by Andreas Bishop, which generates MP3 audio files from Wikipedia articles by speech synthesis. This service was developed at the University of Hagen, Germany. The service is now hosted privately. Alternative text for images and table are removed for better usability. You can reach the PDF on website at www.pdfn.org. Text is available under the Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike license. Additional terms may apply. See Terms of Use for details. Term of use can be found at http://wikimediafoundation.org/wiki/terms_of_use. Wikipedia is a registered trademark of the Wikimedia Foundation, Incorporated, a non-profit organization. >= speed greater than